Saros is a deep game with many mechanics the game does not outright explain to you, so in this video I'll be telling you 10 plus things that I wish I knew sooner in Saros. These tips and tricks will ensure that your next runs go a lot smoother. Now, weapons and artifacts are how you define your builds, but you may come to learn that you may not like a particular artifact or ability that you've gotten. You can always go into your inventory at any time and check out your equipment to be able to see any of the additional features that your weapons have. I would recommend doing this often so you're familiarized with the ones that you actually really like and some of the more powerful ones like the power generation. But my first tip here is artifacts. You can actually remove them. You see on the left hand side of the screen there, you can use your wagers here, which are used to reroll items, but you can also use them to remove artifacts. This is very useful if you end up getting one that you just don't like using. For example, the increased dash cooldown. That one is kind of awful. With the amount of dashing you do in this game, you want to have that coming quickly. So if you grab that and did want to use it, you can remove it. This is also useful if you do multi-biomes in a run, because you can start at one and make your way all the way through to almost the end of the game. This is where you're going to run into that issue of running out of artifact slots. So you can easy enough just remove one of them and then continue on with your build. And the thing is, you're going to run into a lot of artifacts that you just don't end up liking. So don't feel bad if you don't take them. They give a minor stat boost, or some will reduce your stats and increase it. In other metrics, some will also have a chance for volatility. This can be kind of brutal in certain ones, like I don't like getting a dry volatility. That's by far the worst. Command is not too bad. The dry volatility means that you lose all your Lucenite when you die, so I don't like grabbing those ones. Command ones aren't too bad because it just means you can't see corruption, and the health one means you can't see the enemy's health bars. They don't take any more or less damage, so that one is honestly not too bad. So yeah, don't feel bad if you end a run and you only took like one or two artifacts. That's oftentimes more than fine. And also be mindful of the ones that you may be taking on. That might not actually help you against the boss. Like some of them will give you extra power on multi-kills, which in a boss fight, sometimes you're just not able to do that. And my favorite corruptions, because face it, you're going to have some. The one that decreases your maximum health is not bad at all. It ends up not really reducing your health that much. And the ones that jam your gun whenever you get hit by an attack. I found that wasn't really that bad, even at a couple stacks. But this brings us now to weapons, because artifacts are obviously a big part of the build, but you don't need them. You do need a weapon though. And there are 15 different weapons in this game. And honestly, all of them are good. You just have to find the right rolls on each of the weapons. I am working on a tier list where I rank all 15 weapons, so you can stay tuned for that and subscribe if you want to see it. So there are 3 types of pistols in this game. I also like the rifles. These are just a standard weapon that I think works well. The smart rifle and the tactical rifle are nice. And there's also things like shotguns. Now, where shotguns really shine, I've seen a lot of people comment on videos saying shotguns suck in this game. They don't. They're actually insanely good. But there's one particular one that ends up being better than the other. The Annihilator shotgun. This has a grenade alt fire, and the grenade will stagger bosses. If you take any of the upgrades that increase the damage against staggered enemies, you can end up meleeing a target, taking them out immediately, getting all their Lucenite as well. And there's a lot of artifacts out there that'll boost your Lucenite, which will level you up even quicker. The Annihilator shotgun's insane. It can stagger pretty much like everything. It's so powerful. Another thing I want to mention is the onslaught rifle here. You'll see a red mark at the top right corner when you select these. This doesn't have auto aim built into it. And honestly, it's not that bad. Same thing with the marksman's hand cannon. This one doesn't have auto aim, but its alt fire will let you lock on to enemies. And I beat the final boss while using this weapon because it'll have auto aim when you use the alt fire, and it does more damage. It's actually kind of insane how powerful this one is compared to the other 2 pistols, which I didn't really love that much in this game. My favorite weapon being the repeater crossbow here. It has a great alt fire and it shoots 4 in a straight line there. It's great against all bosses. Impactor crossbow, didn't love it. The bifurcator crossbow is insanely powerful too. I think this one is the best in my testing. We also have the chakrams, and I really like the ripsaw, but the better ones in my opinion are myriad and the reaping chakram, which is my absolute favorite. You can pull these back after shooting them using your alt fire. So that's just a brief overview of the weapons. Again, I'll be doing a future video on that one, but when you look at them, they have a few different stats. So you can see here, this has in the top right corner, corrupted. Whenever a weapon is corrupted, that means it's going to deal more damage based on the corruption that you have. And the damage boost is actually very considerable, but you're playing very risky when you do that. Next, we got to look into the stats. So you can see here, I'm currently holding a level 24 or a proficiency 24 weapon. These are based on your proficiency that you see at the bottom left hand of the screen. Now, this is obviously a higher number, but it may not end up being any better. You can see the 3 stats that it's going to have scaled up based on what stats I have. Currently, this one that I'm holding has 2 based on my drive and 1 based on resilience, where the other one is based on the command skill. You're likely going to have most of these stats relatively the same, But if you're on a run and you potentially may have a lot of drive skill and you pick up a weapon with more drive, it's going to be better. But that's not all. You can see on the Horde shotgun here, the middle one, pellet count, has a 2 arrow on the right hand side. This means it's going to scale up quicker with that, and you can see it's already maxed out for its current level. Now, typically these 3 stats will all contribute to DPS in one metric or another. Reload speed means you're going to be shooting your gun quicker, increasing your overall damage per second. Pellet count has more pellets, so obviously it's going to be hitting harder. And the stagger amount is extremely powerful. This is what shotguns are known for. As mentioned, shotguns with especially the Annihilator one, the Horde is not bad because it can change from the vertical to the side shooting, but stagger is really what the shotguns are all about. Now you can also, when you get a weapon, you can pick it up, try it out. Let's say you don't like it. This one has the alt fire being that the vertical spread, which is really good against a lot of enemies, allowing you to hit headshots and things a little bit easier. Let's say you don't like it. You can always go back, take your weapon, and then redraw that original weapon. It'll keep that level of 33 there, and then you may end up getting something better. I got the Annihilator shotgun, which as I said is a really good weapon because it has that grenade launcher, which is going to stagger bosses like an insane amount. The shotgun itself is also really powerful, and I found that the whenever you go to reload it, it's a really easy weapon to reload as well. You can shoot a couple grenades and then you have to reload, but very powerful and a fun weapon. But you can always swap these out. Let's say you just really didn't like that. You can always go and hit the redraw again on it and get something new. The smart rifle is okay. I think it's a good weapon in general, just nothing crazy compared to some of the other ones here. And I end up with the stalwart shotguns. We got 3 shotguns in a row. The shotgun, the Annihilator being by far the best, but with this one here, you can shoot it with the alt fire and have those projectiles there, and then shoot again, it's going to have both of them burst onto the enemy. Now I think it's time to talk settings because there are a lot of good ones here that is going to help out quite a bit on your runs. I would actually recommend going onto the gameplay options here. You can change certain things, like if you're really struggling with the game, I'm going to mention the unlimited protection modifiers. When you're back at your base, you can put on as many Carcosan modifiers you want. You can have 6 on one side, and you can scale them up as much as you want. I don't really recommend doing this unless you're hard stuck on a boss like the Bladed Swamp, which is, in my opinion, the hardest area in the game. So you can just ignore that for the most part. But if you do get stuck, it may be a nice way to get out of it. But my recommendation is under visuals here. So one thing that I ended up doing, and I liked it a lot, is you can change the color of things like the power on your bar, your integrity, regular projectiles. And what I did is I ended up changing the corrupted projectiles because they look a lot like Lucenite when they're like yellowish. Having this green tint to them made them more eye-popping and catching to see. But if you're also like colorblind, for example, you can make these whatever color you want just to make them easier to identify. So don't be afraid to go in here and mess around with it. I just like to have that corrupted projectile on green there. And you can also, if you like to have the beams like maybe pink or purple, you can go ahead and change these here. It's just your preference. You can literally change everything in this game. It's incredible. So many options, but one thing for the controller I want to recommend, I didn't like doing this, but I tried it out for a couple runs. What you can do is you can actually end up marking your alt fire and your power weapon to your left control stick. So when you want to use your power weapon, you press the left control stick and do it that way. And that means you can press down your left trigger the entire way and use the alt fire without accidentally using your power weapon, because it is kind of hard to use and just have a half press. So if you're like myself and big hands, you know, you just want to crush the controller, you don't have to use that alt fire by half pressing the button anymore. You can just go ahead and fully change it over to have the power weapon on the left stick. You can also change the fall protection here. Is something I fell off the edge in this game probably like 5,000 times. So you can change it to make it a little bit more forgiving if you are not the best at, you know, your footing. There's a little example of this shotgun before I switch weapons here. You can see that alt fire is really nice because you can do huge bursts of damage and the stagger potential is really high. But I really like the Reaping Chakram here. This is a corrupted weapon here, and it has a Razor's Edge ability, which gives a bit of extra damage. Again, what we're looking for with weapon abilities is the power generator. This scales up the amount of damage that you'll be doing on your power weapon here. But what's great about the Chakrams, especially this one, is you can press your right trigger and then press your left trigger to pull it back. It'll spin around you. This kind of playstyle is shooting it onto an enemy, going in meleeing, and then pulling it back and having this float around you. But some combat tips and tricks here. So honestly, when it comes to combat, this game is highly prioritizing you to go after the targets with low health. I mean, that should be obvious, but it's even more impactful in a game like this, where some of the enemies here, like the weakest enemy in the entire game, has one of the strongest attacks in the game. So don't be afraid to go after the weaker ones and let the bigger ones kind of, you know, try to, you know, use the environment to your benefit here. Like having those walls around lets you go and hide behind them so that you don't get hit with some of those beam attacks. I found the beam ones to be a little bit more challenging to deal with, so you always want to be moving though. That's kind of the thing in combat. When it comes to fighting, you're going to want to try and, if you have a damage weapon that's going to do some type of damage over time, that's when you want to put it on the big weapon, the big enemy in the room, and then go try to pick off the smaller, weaker enemies. So you always want to have as much visual awareness as possible. This is actually a game that got me to start wearing a headset a little bit more, as you can get a lot of attention just from the sound and where they are relative to your character. Another thing, as you saw there, I just meleeed those corrupted projectiles. You don't actually have to use your shield on projectiles, and that enemy just got staggered there. This weapon actually does quite a bit of stagger on it as well, but yeah, you don't have to use your shield on any corrupted projectile. A simple melee, similar to how you do a parry, will end up giving you the power from it without ending up giving you corruption. There are some bosses that have more homing projectiles though. These are the ones that you really want to try and keep away from you by using the cover as much as possible here. So if there's any of those bosses there that are, you know, like this one here, huge AoEs and tracking projectiles, that was great that I had that wall there to be able to protect me from that. And with the weapon I have currently, it's nice because then I can go ahead, shoot that off into them, avoid all of their attacks, and get into a position where I can go ahead and shoot this again. But when it comes to bossing and things like that, you're going to want to deal with the ads more so than the boss itself, because as I mentioned, they have some of the most devastating base attacks in the game. And don't be afraid when you're in combat to get up close and start punching things, because your melee does quite a bit of damage there, and it can be good because sometimes you can just end up parrying an attack back or getting rid of projectiles that you may have normally taken damage from. These little guys here are the ones that do the most damage. Unfortunately, I ended up getting hit by one. I was not paying attention, and there goes my entire health bar. They can literally do an insane amount of damage despite the size, and the number of them is what is overwhelming. So these enemies, they don't end up appearing after the Bladed Swamp, but they are a very frustrating one, especially if you have a weapon that's like harder to aim with, or like the Marksman hand cannon. The skill tree is where we're going to become very powerful here and make our future runs a lot easier. So just some general tips for the skill tree here. I went through and I tried a lot of different ones. In all honesty, you only really need to have one key storage upgrade here. This is a really useful one just because this lets you grab some things that you may not already get, but you're going to get a lot of keys throughout the game. The most impactful ones, in my opinion, in the skill tree is additional accolades wager. These let you re-roll items, and as mentioned, this lets you get your favorite weapons, better artifacts, and much more. So anytime you see one of these, grab it right away. It's the most impactful, one of the most impactful. I truly think the most impactful in the entire list is restoration upgrades and the additional restoration. You get a lot of these throughout the run, and what's so powerful about this is that it makes pretty much not every enemy, but most enemies drop the yellow heals, which you can get even more health back from. So basically, whenever this happens, is if you had a bad encounter, you can basically get all your health back by the end of it. So I always prioritize grabbing those. I also recommend grabbing as many hostile extractions as possible. Extra Lucinae is important for not just the skill tree, but also leveling up your proficiency mid-game. So this can help you get to higher levels, get better weapons, and you name it. I don't fully recommend grabbing any of the like increased power. Using your Helicon on other upgrades like Aether is more effective, is much better, and things like the corruption protection and any of the enhanced attributes here. So whenever you get an enhanced drive attribute, getting a couple of these can mean it goes from like 1 to 2 points to 10 plus. Other very important ones are obviously the proficiency enhancement. This just levels up your base level, and that's not all, because whenever you beat the very first boss in the game, you get +1 resilience command and drive for every proficiency level. So every time that you grab a proficiency enhancement, it is giving you a +1 in all stats as well. So it's somewhat like the attribute enhancements here. So always be on the lookout for those. You're going to want to prioritize going for some of the more powerful ones, like Lucenite. Getting your increased drive is going to be nice, but as you continue to level up, you're going to have a lot of points. So sometimes it's best just to fill out the entire tree where you can find it, because you do need to get those other purple options as well. Hostile extraction and the increased Aether healing are the two most impactful, in my opinion, just for extending your runs and helping you level up quicker. And whenever you're doing your upgrades, always start from the lowest ones. If there's something you want, like the greater integrity, let's say you wanted this, but there's a later one, it'll likely be 6 cost later on. So always start from the bottom up when it comes to the purple ones. But as you get later on in the game for the Lucenite upgrades, you want to try and open up as many of the trees as possible. Another really impactful one is actually the Overdrive Charger here. I found this is actually really nice because Overdrive does an insane amount of damage. It's a get out of jail free card. You can pop that if you're getting hit, and you can also use it to basically get your health back on certain enemies. It's so useful. There are some that will help out with like parries reduce corruption and things like that, which are nice, especially if you like the parry style gameplay, but ones that, again, I don't really recommend. You don't need the additional keys. We also don't need to grab as many of the artifact slots unless you're doing multi-biome runs. You're going to have more than enough slots. I've not run out of artifact slots once in this game, but that may be different if you're doing multiple biome runs. But honestly, I don't think you really need to in this game unless you really want to. But again, best ones being Acolyte's Wager and the heals. Now, the Carcosan modifiers, as mentioned in the settings section, you can have it so you can select 6 of these and max them out if you want to, and this will make your game a lot easier. But some of the most impactful ones, in my opinion, Overlord Restoration is probably the single best one here that's going to impact your runs the most, because when you make it all the way to the Overlord, nothing worse. I've had it happen multiple times where I had like just a sliver of health left. This is especially bad against certain bosses, so don't get caught with your pants down. Using the Overlord Restoration here just gives you full health. It's kind of a no-brainer. It has a -1 cost, but one thing I do want to mention is the artifact destruction. This has a +2 balance cost. This will destroy an artifact on approaching a new biome. This is okay if you're doing a single area, so if you just go to like one area and you're trying to fight the boss, you can take this and not have to worry. It won't actually impact you. Also, if you cleared out all the Halcyon from an area, the Halcyon removal gives you a +6. Sorry, I hope you guys didn't hear that. There's a random shelter in place in warning here. That was the phone alarm going off. But another really useful one is the damage enhancements. These can be nice for 2 costs. You can actually scale up the damage from your weapons quite a bit and also reduce the damage you take. I typically like to go with the Overlord Restoration. I also recommend the Lucenite Magnetism. If you've, run through and seen your Lucenite go away one too many times, this greatly increases the range that you're going to be able to collect it from, which means you're going to level up your character quicker and level up. So this one's honestly kind of an underrated one. You can get this as an artifact, but it usually will come with like a downside of some sort. As you get to the later game, weapon symmetry is amazing. If there's a particular weapon you just love, like a particular crossbow or a certain rifle, this will ensure that you're more likely to get what you already had. I really like Prominence. It's kind of the only one that I really like to use consistently, and this just helps you get it quicker. Also, the artifact immunity is extremely powerful too. Like, you can go ahead with like just the Overlord Restoration and artifact immunity alongside going with the plus artifact destruction there, and you're going to have no negative effects on your artifacts, minus the volatility that still gets applied. And then you can take this and get your full health back at a boss. So this is kind of like the ideal approach I'd like to use, but everyone's different. Some people like certain ones, and I think this is a really smart way to actually like build a game, because certain people play differently, and this lets you choose the challenges that you want to have. I also like the Nova Dash here because you can actually go through the red projectiles, which you normally cannot dash through, and this can be very helpful on a couple bosses in particular. And I also found the hostile aggression enhancements not terrible, honestly. It gives you a +4 to balance, so it's kind of worth it. And if you don't care about the negative effects, you can go with the damage enhancement and armor enhancement alongside that Overlord Restoration with just the artifact destruction. Another quick tip is movement. So you can jump and dash. I do that all the time in this game, especially in boss fights. You typically want to do a jump dash versus just a dash on the ground. But if you press the dash button and then keep moving, you get this super sprint. And the best part is you can let go of R1 and you got this crazy sprint. Just be mindful though that when you use it, you do get an enhanced jump, but you don't get a dash at the end of your jump. Another thing about the dash is, let's say you took the ability that gives you fall damage. What you can do when you're dropping from a large height is right before you hit the ground, dash. It reduces the momentum that you'd have, so then you end up not getting, hit by it. So that can be a good counter to it. I'll quickly mention, this is actually a pretty good one. One hit immunity after using Aether. You can get a lot of Aether, as mentioned, from the skill tree. So this is actually kind of a nice one, because immunity to one single hit is actually quite a bit in the run of this, like in the entire run. You're going to have a lot more health because of this. And also, when it comes to weapons that are able to get reloaded, you can use your right control stick to be able to reload it instead of pressing R2. I found that to work a lot better. So you can also turn off the right trigger reload. I found that just using both is kind of nice, because certain shotguns you're going to get in the habit of pressing the button repetitively, but you can just use this option, and whenever you go to reload, use the right control stick. It's going to feel a lot smoother. Another thing with combat is you may have auto aim on your gun, but you're going to see those dots that connect onto your auto aim target. The more you aim towards that middle part, the more damage you're going to end up doing. So this is something you want to get in the habit of, is actually aiming fully onto the enemy, and this may actually help out because you may end up using the onslaught rifle or the marksman hand cannon and have better success because you're getting into a habit of aiming while you're dashing around and stuff like that. So yeah, always be mindful of where you're aiming at. Try to do it as much as you can towards their weak point, and this also applies to certain if you're using any type of power weapon as well. Some of them will end up doing more damage if you aim at a certain area, or even if you grab a particular buff on them, they may end up doing that. So that's something to always be keeping an eye on. If you can aim a little bit better, it might be worth trying. This is an artifact I would just never grab because +6 to drive, -3 command is okay at best, but low chance for drive volatility. I'm not risking on one like this. You'll eventually get a ton of chance to get the volatility here, which sucks really badly. Improved integrity repair is okay. Don't be afraid to redraw these if there's a certain one that you want. Typically the level 1 are not worth redrawing, so I would save this for like the levels 4 and 5 ones because these are typically just going to be kind of weaker, but you may get a decent roll at some point. Like melee hits generate power. I really like this one because power you can use on anyone. So always be looking for anything that helps out with power generation, whether it be melee hits generate power, or if you can find a weapon that has the ability to give yourself, it's called power generator. They just nerfed it today, but it's still very strong from what I was doing. I played a few hours earlier today. It's still really strong. And this is a game that really rewards you for looking around. There's many areas in this game where if you just look up, there might be something you can fire away at, and it's going to give you access to a new location. Now, adrenaline. You're going to get this as you continue to go through combat, as you pick up loot, as you shoot enemies. There are 5 stages, and you can see it by the bottom of the screen in the middle here. Now, it's not going to indirectly boost your damage here. What the increases end up looking like, you can view them by going to your status here. I only have 3 right now, but the first one's a power boost. You're going to get more power back anytime you're using your shield or any type of action that ends up giving you power. Infrared boost at level 2 lets you see some enemies through walls. This is really nice just to be able to plan ahead if there's like I was just using this wall here to kind of hide from the enemy, so that can be really nice to prevent that from happening. Level 3 gives melee damage a boost, which is really good because melee is such a strong ability in this game. The only downside is you have to get in close range, which makes you more likely to get hit, which you may end up losing it. When you get 4 stacks of your adrenaline, you're going to get a repair boost, meaning that any type of Aether will give you more heals back. And then the 5th stack is Power Boost Plus, which basically gives you even more power back from anything that's going to give you that. So can be very good. All right, here it is fully. I was scared that I wouldn't end up getting a full adrenaline here. I didn't end up losing it, but yeah, you get the repair boost and then Power Boost Plus. Now here's actually a good way to explain the different amount of perks you're going to find on weapons. So power weapons scale a little bit differently than your basic weapon. So a weapon that's at proficiency 0 to 10, so just a basic weapon, is going to have 1 slot on it. Anything past 10 is going to give them a second one. Once you get past 20, that gives them the 3rd one. Through past level 30 gives them 4, and past level 40 gives them 5. So I have a level 24 chakram here. It's going to have 3 options here. And then you can see I have a level 24 version of a power weapon. It actually goes in 5. So at level 24 you have so anything below like 15 is going to only have 1. Past it gets 2, and then when we're at 24 we only have 2, but 25 will give us a 3rd, 35 will give us 4, and 45 will give us 5 abilities listed on it. So it scales up in 5s or 10s depending on if it's a weapon or a power weapon. I finally got a power generator. I've been looking for one for hours here. Weapons damage generates extra power. This is still one of the best even after it's nerfed today, because when you use this, you're going to get your power back. And things like Prominence, with the fast way, like Prominence fires off so quickly, is just an incredible one. When you're using any of the other power weapons, I'd probably recommend just holding on to Prominence just because the damage that it does is good. Even at lower proficiencies, you're still going to do a lot. But yeah, power generator is by far the best one you can get. But there are a lot of really powerful 5th tier abilities that you can get, like the Trickster, which is really good on like the Ricochet hand cannon here, because when you hit weak points, it's going to scale up your damage a lot, and it can do quite a bit of damage. So always be on the lookout for different types of abilities that you can get on these, as they are what defines what the weapon does. And there's some that you may just find works really good with your playstyle. Now here's actually a great example of a lower tier weapon being better. So you can see here, this is a red down arrow by the 27, but we have a better explosion radius scaling whenever we have that 1 arrow there, meaning that the explosion is going to be much larger with the lower level one. And then you got to look at the abilities. So it's not always as clear as you may expect. When you see big number, brain happy, not always the case. You may want to go for a lower level of weapon if it has better rolls. Now certain weapons are just going to be better against certain bosses, so that's something you'll get to experience with time as you continue to play this game. So don't be afraid if you're finding that a certain weapon just does not do very well. You may need to just try it out with a different weapon. Like for example, just the first boss here, just going through a quick run, The ricochet pistol is so good here because all those ricochets are clearing out the additional enemies really quickly, and then with all the extra projectiles, we're able to get our power weapon back really quickly. And again, you can melee those projectiles there to get the power back from them without having to work on, you know, using your shield and gaining all that corruption there. So don't be afraid to just melee projectiles from time to time. It can help out quite a bit. And yeah, some bosses you're just going to get countered a lot harder by a certain maybe artifact or a certain weapon. So don't be afraid to, if you're not having a good run, you know, take it back to camp and try again. Maybe this time learn from what you grabbed that maybe it just isn't the right for you. But honestly, in this game, all the weapons are pretty good. I thought that certain things like shotguns were pretty bad at my first attempts, but as you get higher level abilities on them, like the Juggernaut is just super useful. This lets you basically just tank a lot of damage when you're using a shotgun. And even things like the Marksman pistol, which I also thought was pretty bad because whenever I use it, it's hard to have to aim all the time with it. But I found out that the alt fire is really good because typically against bosses, you're going to be using the alt fire on them so that you can get the auto aim on it. So that can make this a lot of the fights so much easier in Saros. So if this guide was helpful, please hit the subscribe button below. Hope you guys all have a great day, and let me know what kind of Saros content you guys would like to see next.